The initial response from Russia's elite to the invasion of Ukraine was a mixture of disbelief and panic. They had been assured that the operation would be swift and decisive, a show of strength that would bolster their nation's standing on the global stage. This was not the clean, swift operation they had been promised. Instead, they were met with images of destruction and resistance, a far cry from the anticipated victory parade. Sanctions hit hard and fast, disrupting their carefully curated lives. Private jets were grounded, overseas accounts were frozen. The yachts that once symbolized their untouchable status were now docked and unused, gathering dust. The world they knew, built on access and extravagance, was crumbling. Lavish parties and opulent gatherings became a thing of the past, replaced by empty mansions and silent halls. Many condemned the war in private, whispering anxieties in the gilded cages of their mansions. Conversations that once revolved around business deals and luxury vacations now centered on fear and uncertainty. Some, like Mikhail Friedman, even dared to speak out publicly, calling for peace. Their voices, though few, echoed the sentiments of many who were too afraid to speak. Others packed their bags and fled, seeking refuge in Dubai or London, away from the storm engulfing their homeland. These cities became sanctuaries for those who could afford to escape. This initial descent, however, was short-lived. The fear of retribution loomed large, and the once vocal critics fell silent. The Kremlin, ruthless and efficient, moved swiftly to silence any opposition. Arrests were made, and dissent was quashed with an iron fist. Fear, a powerful motivator, began to take hold. The elite, once confident and untouchable, now found themselves looking over their shoulders, their luxurious lives overshadowed by the ever-present threat of the Kremlin's reach. Vladimir Putin, a man who brooks no opposition, responded to dissent with characteristic brutality. Critics of the war, no matter how wealthy or well-connected, were swiftly silenced. Some disappeared, their fates unknown. Others found themselves facing trumped-up charges, their assets seized, their lives upended. The message was clear: loyalty or else. This crackdown had a chilling effect. Open criticism of the war evaporated. The elite, once accustomed to a degree of autonomy, learned to bite their tongues. Fear, however, was only one part of the equation. As the war dragged on and their initial shock subsided, a different kind of calculus began to take hold. With each passing month, the hope for a quick victory and a return to their comfortable lives dwindled away. The West, despite its initial hesitation, rallied strongly behind Ukraine. Sanctions, far from crippling the West, began to bite deeper into the Russian economy. The elites found themselves trapped. Their world was shrinking, their options limited. Speaking out now carried even greater risks, with even less chance of success. Resignation set in. Why risk everything for a lost cause? This sense of futility was further compounded by a subtle yet insidious shift in the narrative surrounding the war itself. As state-controlled media, now the only voice permitted, began to spin a narrative of Russian strength and Western weakness. Every setback was spun as a strategic retreat, every atrocity dismissed as Western propaganda. Slowly, insidiously, a new reality began to take hold. The elites, starved of alternative information and surrounded by yes-men, found themselves gradually accepting this narrative. Perhaps, they reasoned, Putin wasn't so wrong after all. Perhaps Russia was winning. This shift from outrage to acceptance was not a sudden epiphany, but a gradual erosion of belief. Trapped in a gilded cage, surrounded by the trappings of their former lives, Russia's elites made their peace with the war. Section 5, The Price of Silence, Navigating a New Reality. This acceptance, however, came at a price. The elites, once accustomed to wielding influence, were now relegated to the role of spectators. They could maintain their wealth and status, but only by remaining silent, by becoming complicit in Putin's war. Some, no doubt, found solace in this new reality. They embraced the nationalist fervor, the talk of restoring Russia to its former glory. Others, haunted by doubts, retreated into their private worlds, seeking distraction in luxury and excess. Yet beneath the surface of this carefully constructed facade, a deep unease remained. Whispers of doubt, of fear, of what the future might hold. Section 6. Whispers in the palaces, fears of further escalation. For even as they publicly toed the party line, there was an undercurrent of unease that permeated the halls of power. Many within the elite harbored deep anxieties about Putin's ultimate goals. They questioned his long-term vision and the potential consequences of his actions. What if Ukraine was just the beginning? The initial invasion had already sent shockwaves through the international community. What if Putin, drunk on dreams of imperial grandeur, was not satisfied with just Ukraine? His speeches often hinted at a broader vision, one that extended far beyond current borders, set his sights on other targets. The implications were staggering. The potential for further conflict loomed large. The Baltic states, with their large Russian-speaking populations, were a particular source of concern. These nations, once part of the Soviet Union, now found themselves on the front lines of a new geopolitical struggle. Were a particular source of concern. The fear was that Putin might use the pretext of protecting Russian speakers to justify further military action. So too was the possibility of a direct confrontation with NATO, a scenario that could escalate into a full-blown nuclear war. The stakes had never been higher, a scenario that could escalate into a full-blown nuclear war. The mere thought of such a conflict was enough to send shivers down the spine of even the most seasoned diplomats. These fears, whispered in hushed tones behind closed doors, reflected a growing realization. Putin's ambitions were boundless. The uncertainty of his next move created an atmosphere of constant tension. The war in Ukraine was not an end in itself, but a harbinger of what might come. The conflict served as a grim reminder of the volatility of the region, but a means to an end, a stepping stone on the path to restoring Russia's lost empire. The echoes of history were unmistakable, a stepping stone on the path to restoring Russia's lost empire. The ambitions of the past seemed to be resurrected in the present, casting a long shadow over the future. Section 7. A world held hostage, Putin's grand gamble. This realization, terrifying in its implications, placed the world in a precarious position. Putin, emboldened by what he perceived as Western weakness, seemed intent on testing the limits of the possible. The upcoming US presidential election, with its potential for political upheaval, presented a particular opportunity. Might Putin be tempted to escalate the conflict, hoping to exploit divisions within the West and install a more pliant administration in Washington? The stakes, already high, were rising by the day. The world was holding its breath, watching and waiting as Putin played his dangerous game of brinksmanship. Section 8. The Abyss gazes back, the perils of unchecked ambition. The acceptance of the war by Russia's elites, born of fear and resignation, had created a dangerous feedback loop. With no internal pressure to change course, Putin was free to pursue his reckless agenda, unchecked and unchallenged. The world stood on the precipice, staring into the abyss of a wider conflict. The consequences of unchecked ambition, of a leader unconstrained by reason or morality, were all too clear. The specter of nuclear war, once unthinkable, now loomed large. This was the legacy of Putin's war, a world held hostage to the whims of a single man. Section 9. A legacy of complicity. The elites and Russia's future. And what of Russia's elites, the architects of their own gilded cage? These individuals, draped in luxury and power, had long enjoyed the fruits of their nation's labor. They had built their fortunes on the backs of the common people, all while turning a blind eye to the growing discontent and suffering around them. Their complicity in this tragedy, their silence in the face of evil, would forever stain their legacy. The cracked mirror symbolizes their fractured morality, a reflection of their inner turmoil and guilt. They had the power to make a difference, yet chose to remain silent, their faces somber and haunted by the choices they made. They had chosen self-preservation over principle, wealth over the well-being of their own people. In their opulent surroundings, they counted their money, oblivious to the cries of protest and the suffering of the masses. Their wealth had become a barrier, isolating them from the reality of their nation's plight. In doing so, they had become architects of their own demise, complicit in the destruction of the very system that had enriched them. The collapsing building symbolizes the crumbling foundation of their power, and their distressed faces reveal the dawning realization of their role in this downfall. The future remained uncertain, But one thing was clear. Russia, once a rising power, was now a pariah state, isolated and reviled. The highlighted borders on the map show a nation cut off from the world, and the empty streets reflect the desolation and abandonment felt by its people. The dreams of empire lay in ruins, consumed by the flames of Putin's vanity. The historic ruins and the burning flag are stark reminders of what was lost, a once great nation brought to its knees by the hubris of its leaders. The legacy of the elites is one of complicity and failure, a cautionary tale for future generations. Section 10. Beyond the Horizon, Uncertainty and the Specter of War. As the sun set on another day of bloodshed and uncertainty, the world watched and waited. Would reason prevail, or would the flames of conflict engulf us all? The answers to these questions lay shrouded in the mists of the future. One thing, however, was certain. The world had entered a new and dangerous era, one defined by uncertainty, volatility, and the ever-present specter of war. The choices made in the days and weeks to come would determine the fate of nations, and perhaps even the future of humanity itself. The world was watching. The stakes had never been higher.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.